Welcome back to Unlimited Reads. You're with Chris, and thanks for joining me today as I will be bringing to you my spoiler-free review of Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson, Book 4 in the Stormlight Archive. Now, I did this as a buddy read with my friend John over at Talking Story. All through the buddy read, we were messaging back and forth on our thoughts and impressions about the book, and we agreed on pretty much everything on what we liked about the book and what we didn't like so much. Now, I have to be honest, out of the 4 Stormlight books I have read, I have to say that Rhythm of War is my least favourite, even though it was still good. But now I am happy that I'm up to date, and along with everyone else, I am ready and anticipating Wind and Truth, due to be released on the 6th of December. I just cannot wait. After forming a coalition of human resistance against the enemy invasion, Dalinar Kholin and his Knights Radiant have spent a year fighting a protracted, brutal war. Neither side has gained an advantage, and the threat of a betrayal by Dalinar's crafty ally Taravangian looms over every strategic move. Now, as new technological discoveries by Navani Kholin scholars begin to change the face of the war, the enemy prepares a bold and dangerous operation. The arms race that follows will challenge the very core of the Radiant ideals and potentially reveal the secrets of the ancient tower that was once the heart of their strength. At the same time that Kaladin Stormblessed must come to grips with his changing role within the Knights Radiant, his Windrunners face their own problems. As more and more deadly enemy fused awaken to wage war, no more Honorspren are willing to bond with humans to increase the number of Radiants. Adolin and Shallan must lead the Coalition's envoy to the Honorspren stronghold of lasting integrity, and either convince the Spren to join the cause against the evil god Odium, or personally face the storm of failure. Apart from being aware that amongst the readership and fan base that this isn't a favourite of the series, I was still optimistic, even though the length was a bit intimidating to begin with. But once you open the first page, the thing that I felt was coming home and reacquainting myself with these characters I have grown to love. So reading the first chapter, I don't know, there was a sort of a comforting feel I got, because it's all familiar, and I'm familiar with the world of Roshar now and pretty comfortable with the magic system, and just fell into it very, very easily. Yeah, look, to me, it's probably the slowest paced book in the series. I don't know, there just doesn't seem to be much going on in various parts of the book. I mean, don't get me wrong, the writing is great. I just found in some places it did drag for me a little bit, and the good thing, though, is part 5 makes up for it all, and my patience was well rewarded, and part 5 is just incredible. There are so many moments here that I couldn't turn the pages quick enough, and it would have to be the best part 5 out of the whole series at the moment. Okay, let's start with Shallan. Now, she continues to be one of my favourite characters of the series. In this book, however, I did struggle a little bit with her multiple personalities. So we have Shallan, Radiant and Vale all vying for attention, and they take turns in taking control of Shallan. So I find that a bit crowded, but I was pleased by the end of the book that her character arc was resolved somewhat. Alright, let's talk about Kaladin. In this book, he has so much to overcome, and there are moments where I felt so sorry for him. He is not in a really good place throughout this book, but I'm very happy with how his character arc evolves over the course of the book, and it left me very satisfied and very optimistic for his role in the future of the series. Dalinar is definitely my favourite character of the entire series at the present time. Now, there's not enough of him in the book, which is disappointing. I mean, we did get a good dose of him in Oathbringer, which is why it is my favourite book of the series so far, but we just don't get enough of him here. When he does appear on the page, he actually steals every single scene. His dialogue is fantastic, and he just shines in every scene he's in, but I'm craving more of Dalinar. John would agree with me that there wasn't enough Dalinar in this book, and I'm hoping Dalinar plays a much larger role in Wind and Truth when it finally comes out on December 6th. Let's talk about Adolin. Now, I really like him, but there isn't enough of him in the book either, although his role in overcoming the massive obstacle to change the direction of the war between the Alethi and the Fused is nothing short of phenomenal, with some of the best dialogue in his scenes I have ever read. Now, I'm pleased that Navani gets a larger role in this book, how she overcomes certain challenges with Raboniel, who is the leader of the fused horde that has laid siege to Urithiru. And there's no violence with the scenes between her and Raboniel. It's more a battle of wills and intelligence, and that was intriguing. And at the end, Navani's story arc resolves very well. And I was very, very satisfied with the direction her character will be taking in the future. And finally, I want to talk briefly about Taravangian, probably my least favourite character in the book, that traitorous prick. Having said that, though, as annoying as he is, his character evolved to such a point that I ended up shouting out loud, "What? What?" when I was reading the book. Now, I don't normally react like that, but what happens with his character is absolute genius on Sanderson's part, and I was not expecting this. No one will see this coming if they haven't read the book already, but if you have read the book, you know exactly what I'm talking about here, and it's probably one of the biggest Sanderlanches I have ever read, and probably one of the best Sanderlanches in the entire series. Yeah, look, the world building continues to be awesome. We see a bit more of Shadesmar with this one. How Sanderson imagines all this stuff is just absolutely amazing. We see a little bit more about the mysteries being recovered from the Tower of Urithiru. We see a lot more bigger and more obvious cosmic connections being spoken about in the book, because in book 5 I think things are going to come to a head and there are going to be major cosmic connections there. We also have a bit of mental health explored, which is this is the book where it's been more prevalent than previous books. So we have Sanderson exploring PTSD and depression in particular, which he handles very, very well. And with those components or elements in this book, it really hits you in the feels at times. The writing quality is as good as ever, if not better, and Sanderson knows exactly what he's doing. His prose is very smooth and rich and detailed and thorough, but yeah, the writing quality still continues to improve with every book, I think. Oh, standout moments, where do I start? There are heaps, and if you haven't read this book yet and you want answers, you're going to get them, and you're going to get some really good character development and moments here. The first one I'll mention is there's a very early exchange between Cal and Dalinar early on in the book, which is very touching. It made me cry because of the exchange they have, which I'm not going to go into here because this will be spoiler free. Navani gets a lot more page time, which is great, so it's interesting to see her character develop and the challenges she must overcome, and use every ounce of her intelligence to overcome these obstacles. And she's such an underrated character. I actually have a lot of time for her, and I really like Navani. She would probably be in my top 5 characters of the Cosmere, actually. Cal and a certain character have unfinished business, which stems from all the way back to Words of Radiance. It's very, very interesting how that plays out, and very satisfying as well. And Cal also reunites with another character, which is one of the most touching parts of the entire book, and another tear-jerking moment. You just can't help but cry, and this book caused me to react that way. Someone in this book achieves the 4th ideal, which is probably one of my favourite moments ever. Now, I'm going to draw a parallel to this with a movie from 2006 called Superman Returns. Now, what happens is Lex Luthor stabs him in the back with a shard of kryptonite, and Lois Lane pulls it out, and he flies up into the air and gets recharged from the sun, and you see his fist come up to the screen like this, and the clouds break apart and open up with light coming through from the sun, and you see Superman swooping down, and it's like, right, now people are going to get it. That's the kind of moments that I love reading about, and there is a moment like that here, which I've got chills now talking about it. It's one of my favourite moments of the entire book, and a lot of people who have read the book will agree that it's like, you know, words can't really describe how exciting it was. So watch out for that one when you finally get to this book. There's a discussion between Dalinar and Taravangian, which is earth-shattering. It's such a powerful exchange, and it's very, very necessary for the story to progress, because there are issues between the two of them that need to be resolved, and I found that just so addictive to read about. It was a very, very powerful scene. There's a story here within the book called The Dog and the Dragon, told by Hoyd, and it's one of the best stories I've ever heard from him. It was absolutely fantastic. The scenes in Shadesmar where Adeline is petitioning for the aid of the Spren in the war between the Alethi and the Fused, absolutely brilliant. The flashbacks featuring Venli, Ashenay's sister, were quite good. It provided a lot more scope and depth and context all the way back to the Way of Kings. It was fantastic. And finally, just revisiting what I mentioned with Taravangian, something that happens with him is absolutely incredible. Even though he was despicable and I didn't like him, it was genius on Sanderson's part, and has to be the biggest Sanderlanche of the entire series at the moment. No real negatives apart from the fact that I lost my bearings starting the book, because the gap between Oathbringer and Rhythm of War is 12 months, which is the longest gap between books, and I found it hard to get my bearings because there were radiants there, new radiants that I hadn't heard of before, so a little bit of getting used to things, but it was only a small thing. If you're all caught up and finished Oathbringer and you haven't started this book yet, I think you're going to enjoy it, especially when you get answers in relation to the Fabrials and the secrets of Urithiru that continue to be uncovered. Now, at times, the science behind the Fabrials does get a little bit heavy, and I struggled with that a little bit as well, but it'll prime you for Wind and Truth, and I myself am chomping at the bit to dive into Book 5. I can't wait. Because of how Rhythm of War ended, I have to read Book 5. I just have to, and I can't wait. But even though Rhythm of War is my least favourite of the books so far in the series, it's still pretty solid in my opinion. So there you go, guys. That is it for my spoiler-free review of Rhythm of War. Thank you very much for watching. If you like my videos, hit the little subscribe button down in the right-hand corner there. It's easy to do, just a click and you are subscribed for more content coming your way. So until the next video, guys, happy reading.